The world is full of tours. But you don't choose a Toyota truck to follow the beaten path. You choose it to find the places in between. The detours, where each adventure pulls you toward the next. And wrong turns turn out right. So why would you ever take a tour when you could take a detour? Toyota Trucks.
It is very ethically ambiguous, at the very least, ethically ambiguous.
In the most generous sense.
I'm ethnically ambiguous. AI is ethically ambiguous.
Sup, nerds? It's basketball. Welcome to Horse, a basketball podcast about everything except for the wins and losses. My name is Mike Schubert, and I'm joined by my trusted co-host, the LeBron having sciatica this season to LeBron having arthritis as well this season. It's Adam Amwala. Adam, how's it going?
You know what?
Not a commentary on your age. We're trying to keep up with the dynamic duo commentary.
Well, LeBron is older than I am, so let's start there. But as we record this on Monday, December 8th, he's coming off a pretty impressive performance against the Sixers.
Really good game against the Sixers. Yeah, he took a game off because of sciatica and arthritis, which is just a great DNP did not play to get. DNP old as hell.
Exactly. But also within the past week since our last episode, his streak of scoring 10 points in consecutive games has ended after 18 years. I saw a great thing that was like, this is what the world was like the last time LeBron scored less than 10 points. And it was just...
It predated the release of the iPhone. That was the last time LeBron scored less than 10 points in a game. And he had incredible. 8, of course. And of course, he had the chance to shoot the game-winning shot, but instead passed it. And his teammate Rui Hachimura made the game-winning shot. And he gave the perfect interview, whether he's lying or not. The perfect interview at the end. Someone said, how do you feel about the streak ending? And he said, I don't care, we got the win. Now, maybe he believes it. There's probably a little bit of him that would have loved for the 10 points, but I kind of buy it, you know? Like, it's one of those streaks that's cool, but also, like, who cares? Like, it's such an arbitrary, double digits, like, does mean nothing. It's just pretty. I've even learned that in math, we'd be better off if we were on a base 12 system instead of a base 10 system. We're just on a base 10 system because we have 10 fingers.
I don't even know what that means.
So basically, I have in-laws who are mathematicians, PhD math graduates. They said that basically if we did things in bases of 12, like counting in sets of 12 instead of sets of 10, it would be cleaner because most fractions divided by 12 are clean. Like they end as opposed to being like repeating. Like 1/3 isn't a good one because it's like 0.333333 repeating. But if you look at most fractions, they end in like clean decimals that just end. So it ends up being simple. So it's not a perfect system, but it's more reliable than the tens because by tens, you're only going to have like a quarter, a half, 3/4. Like there's not going to be as many clean ones.
That's
so
very interesting.
12 would be better, but we have 10 fingers and that's how it happened.
But some people have 12 fingers, most notably former Cubs reliever, early baseball reference, Antonio Alfonseca, who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. And as a result, was able to throw movement on a baseball in a way that no other human could, and yet still had like a 6 ERA and blew a lot of games for the Cubs because of course he did.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
How does he give people the middle finger? He doesn't have a middle finger. Does he have to?
I think you hold up
two. Yeah, you got to super finger it.
You got to SuFi.
Wow,
isn't that interesting?
That is, I know what I'm doing after this episode. I'm deep diving on this dude. We've got a deep dive on basketball. This is a basketball podcast, so we're going to talk about basketball. And the way that we're going to get ready to talk about basketball is by going to the Teal Memorial Locker Room, which does use base 12 math in all of its different systems.
I never would have known that.
Super efficient. That's the thing. It's so efficient you don't even recognize it. You know who else is super efficient?
Our patrons.
Our patrons. They're all so efficient, and especially so our producer level patrons. Just super duper efficient. Shout out to those producers: Polly Burge, Salvatore Testa, Siobhan Ellsbury, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Roast Beef Debris, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Reed. Steph Curry didn't even play last night, and the Warriors still beat the Bulls by 30.
Everything's great. Bang.
Chase Underulo, Nick and Rachel, Sidney Crosby is a vampire, Chelsea's cousin, Ginger Spurs boy, Balls to the Walls, Mott's Forley, Utah Jash, and Dairy Bird. And you know who else is doing some stuff efficiently?
Probably our sponsor, Tab for a Cause.
Yeah, they're basically turning your inefficiencies by opening a million tabs into charitable output. I think that's very efficient. So if you go to tab4acause.org/horse, tabforacause.org/horse, you can install this into your web browser. Every time you open a tab, you'll get a pretty picture of either nature or architecture, and you might see some ads in the corner of your screen, but those ads raise money for charity, and then you can choose what charities it goes to. Really cool. We've been using it for years. Tab check, Adam. I've got, let's see, I'm a little high. I've got 8.
Well, in this particular browser, because I opened a different one for Riverside, I only have 2 open. So many are saying I'm in my Mike Schubert era, tabs wise.
I have 2 on this one browser, but then on my other one, my personal, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
On my other, it's always somewhere around 20.
Yeah.
Let's get a quick look-see here. I want to play fair.
Yeah, I'm a work browser and personal browser, like keep them on separate apps guy. That's how I roll.
Yeah, just a quick eyeball. I'm going to say about 25.
Okay. Well, there we are.
Weirdly enough, I know what all of them are. And most of them I want to be there.
Look, that's where Kelly's at too. Kelly has so many tabs that the tabs are so small you only see the logo of what website it is. Like you don't even see the beginning of the text.
Celia's
and
a tab
she
monster
knows
also.
what each one is,
I know.
and I don't know how. It's really impressive. She's like, oh yeah, the third Gmail one is my personal Gmail. The second Gmail is my Etsy account Gmail. Like it's wild. Absolutely
Different
wild.
strokes
But
for different folks, man.
indeed. And that's our sponsor, Tab for a Cause. So now, unless you're listening on Patreon, where you don't listen to inserted ads, unless you're listening there, you're going to hear some inserted ads. And once they are complete, we'll continue this episode of Force.
You hear that? That's not just a Toyota truck. That's the sound of no crowds, no alerts, no distractions, and no telling what you'll find next. You know, like a detour. So why would you ever take a tour when you could take a detour? Toyota trucks.
Adam, what do you got going on?
All right, so as you're listening to this, my New York and Las Vegas shows have already happened. Hopefully I got to meet some of you there. That is it for the rest of the year, but early next year I have some stuff. I have one in New London, Connecticut. That is on Saturday. I believe it's the 3rd of January at a place called the Guard Arts Center. I don't know. I've heard it's cool. Then that following weekend, I will be in Colorado. So I will be in Denver on the 7th, 9th and 10th, and I will be in Fort Collins on the 8th. I think those dates are correct, but you could look them up. And then after that, I will be I'm still working on London. We're going to see if something happens in London in mid-January. And then in February, I am in Dallas at the Dallas Comedy Club on the weekend of Valentine's Day, same as I was last year. Hopefully going to do a little Houston and perhaps Austin situation as well. And then stuff later in the year in Chicago, in Boston. I'm working on San Diego. So a lot of stuff coming up. You can find all of that at adammamawala.com/standup or at linktree.com/adammamawala. What about you? I know obviously you've got the big Aussie situation.
Yes.
Both Australia and New Zealand, right? Or just,
Correct. So the LA show just completed. Shout out to the folks who came through. Now in January, we're coming to Australia, and then end of January and beginning of February going to New Zealand. So the Australia ones have been set. That's all on the first Saturdays of the month. So the 3rd, 10th, 17th, and 24th in Sydney, Perth, Melbourne, and Brisbane. And then looking like January 30th, I will be in Christchurch, New Zealand. And then February 1st, I'll be in Wellington, New Zealand. And then February 7th, I'll be in Auckland, New Zealand. So I have to secure the contracts for the New Zealand stuff, but the Australia stuff is all ready and live at thenewsolympian.com/live. And then I'm working on US dates for the spring of next year.
Cool.
Some of them have been confirmed, but tickets aren't live yet. But we're looking at returning to Vienna, Virginia in the DC area in March, and then doing a little run in the western part of the US. So right now, things set in Berkeley, California and Denver, Colorado in April. And then a little later in the southeastern United States, Charlotte and Raleigh, North Carolina. Trying to add an Atlanta date to that as well. So just follow the News Olympian on social media for whenever I have like official announcements about that. But those are the things that are currently in the works.
Sweet.
And then I guess the only other thing like announcement wise is for the News Olympian, since the 2nd season of the Percy Jackson TV show is now out, I'm posting way more content. I was able to do press junket stuff. I was at the premiere. I visited the set. Like there's a bunch of cool stuff coming from the TNO world. So check all that out if you are interested. But
awesome.
With that complete, I think we can move on. Do we have an MB Q&A, or are we going to get right to Full Court Press?
We don't. We need to solicit some more. We haven't been getting a lot recently. So just as a reminder, if you are a patron and you have any question, you get priority. If you are not, you can email us at horsehoopspod@gmail.com, and we will answer your question whenever we get to it. But without further ado, let's get into Full Court Press, Get It Like the News.
Let's get into Full Court Press, Get It Like the News. The biggest thing of news, not necessarily a horse recording curse thing, but a funny timeline of, we talked about how Chris Paul announced his retirement in the last Full Court Press. Now, Chris Paul has been kicked off of the Clippers.
Yeah. Unceremoniously, many would say.
They have severed ties very unceremoniously.
Yeah.
There has been more rumors and rumblings about what happened. It seemed like, from what I have been reading and seeing, that Chris Paul tried to do the thing where he's, especially in this stage of his career, kind of a player, kind of a coach. And it seems like the coaching staff, in particular Jeff Van Gundy, did not enjoy Chris Paul's input. He was trying to do some things sometimes on the fly during games. There was something where Kawhi Leonard, who statistically has been one of the worst defenders in the NBA this season, there was a point where Chris Paul told him to start doing switching, which is when there's a screen, you don't follow your man, you and your teammates switch so that the closer person guards the closer person, basically.
It's something you see a lot more in pickup basketball because people aren't as good of defenders. In the NBA, there's not a lot of switching, or there shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's schematically, it just kind of depends on who's on the other side. Do we need to switch because they're a good shooter like Steph? But basically, the Clippers had a don't switch system, and Chris Paul told Kawhi, hey, you should switch. And that really angered Jeff Van Gundy, but I stand with Chris Paul. I've seen the video of these particular plays. It looked like it was working better for the switching, but it seems...
I don't think I realized Jeff Van Gundy was on the coaching staff there.
Yeah, he's been a defensive specialist with them for, I think, the past 2 seasons. Because he had the runs of trying to get head coaching jobs and it didn't pan out, and then he is now the defensive coach, I believe, on the Clippers. Right. So, yeah. He also had, I forget, he had those, novelty t-shirts that told people to, really work hard. That was, a thing from earlier in the season. So that was at least the rumblings that I had heard of. I don't know if there were other frustrations, but it just really sucks because Chris Paul is in the stage of his career where I think by trying to end with the Clippers, it was going to be this nice little tie a bow on it. We recognize he's not going to play a lot, so let's have a feel-good final season. You'll see a lot of players in various sports retire on the team or a team that was really important to their career. And it seemed like this was going to be that. And for them to just kick him out early, it just really stinks. And also the Clippers are so bad. Why do this?
They're so bad. They're so dysfunctional. The Clippers are always the Mets. It is such a direct comparison. They've got their own billionaire owner who's going to put whatever money they need into getting good players, into a new stadium, and it still doesn't matter. They still end up always being the little brother to the Lakers, who are playing great, and then the Clippers are just complete debacle. And now this is just kind of a bad look. I mean, you've re-signed somebody for what was supposed to be a 1-year swan song, and then allegedly, gotten rid of him in the middle of the night. Come on.
Yeah, and they also, unsurprisingly, have canceled Chris Paul Bobblehead Night, which was slated for February. So
they've rebranded it, though, as Cliff Paul Bobblehead Night. Wearing an all-state shirt.
I wonder if February is far enough where they have not made the bobbleheads yet. I do not know how long it takes to create a bobblehead. I don't know when the production line starts on that, but either there's some people that are going to be coming across 20,000 Chris Paul farewell tour Clippers bobbleheads, or it was early enough that they've done this.
Yeah, do they send them somewhere whichever team loses the Super Bowl sort of thing?
The championship shirts.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you do with that. I mean, I feel like probably, knowing our country, they just landfill them.
Yeah.
And you just go dumpster diving for Chris Paul 2026 bobbleheads.
How much would you pay for a red panda bobblehead?
Oh my gosh. So hundreds, multiple hundreds. No question.
I wonder if anyone's done it.
It should be a Bobbleleg. So they did this once for the Yankees, where Nestor Cortez, former pitcher for the Yankees, used to do funky stuff with his leg when he pitched. And he did a rehab game with a minor league team that is in the Yankees system. And they did Nestor Cortez Bobbleleg night. So not the head shook, but the leg shook. So you could do a Red Panda Bobbleleg where it's her leg with the plates on it, and that wiggles back and forth. We're so good at marketing. I don't know why the NBA has not hired us.
I mean, if we could create some of those and sell them as horse merch, that would be an elite item.
elite people would be freaking out. Red Panda is back. She has recovered from injury. She is absolutely rocking it. She is doing huge games. People are going wild, as they should be. She recently did a Knicks game, so things are good.
As usual, Red Panda participated in more games than Joel Embiid.
Oh, yeah, that would be an interesting. The Red Panda participation versus Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons would be a fun line graph to see how it goes. Because she's no stranger to injury too, but she's back at it. She is back at it. She is. Her legs on the line. But yeah, they have the Clippers. I will say the one silver lining is that they're helping me specifically, guy who drafted them number 1 in the drama draft, because the aspiration thing has seemingly fizzled out. It doesn't seem like they're going to actually get punished super hard. Mm-hmm. And for now, the Clippers to be really bad, like they're doing really poorly. They are, what are they at even? They are
last time
6-18.
Yeah, I was gonna say
they're the second worst team in the West. At least
shout out to the Pelicans.
Oh my gosh,
who are giving tickets away? I've heard.
Oh really? Like straight up free?
Yes, free tickets, and they still can't get people to go.
Look, this is the thing. I mean, I guess we kind of get this with the Nets because tickets are cheap, but they're still like a little bit.
Yeah,
but I love living in New York City, but there's always been a part of me, like, it would be so fun. Maybe when I was an engineer, like, it would have been great if I had just like a 3-month temporary work stint in a team with a terrible NBA team, because then I would just get really nice seats for really cheap.
I would think you could probably sit courtside at a Pelicans game for like $200.
I think so, because one of my buddies, when I was an engineer, he was working at a plant near New Orleans. I think it was closer to Baton Rouge, so it was like a bit of a drive. But it was the season that was Kobe's last season.
Oh, you've mentioned this.
He was doing farewell tour, and it was like courtside seats were $300. And I was like, dude, you can't get into some...
And he didn't do it, right?
No, he didn't. It was like, dude, you can't get into some stadiums for a Kobe game on this farewell tour for $300. You can sit courtside? Like, absolutely do it. Absolutely do it.
Well, much like when they talk about, like, you know, if you're a Knicks fan, it would be cheaper to, like, fly to the opposing team's stadium and go to a playoff game than to just go at the Garden. I would think, I mean, I'm sure when the Lakers come, it'll be much more expensive than usual. But, like, if you haven't seen LeBron and you want to, I don't know, fly to New Orleans, make a little trip out of it.
Well, that was Zach Lowe, a really great NBA media guy. He said he was planning like a dude's trip, and they were trying to decide where to go. And New Orleans had this perfect time. I think they were going in February. It was one of those perfect scheduling things where like they could go to a basketball game, like they could go to multiple sporting events, like all on the same weekend,
or Pelicans game, or whatever. Yeah.
Something like that. And maybe it was in February then, but it was some sort of thing where it was like, we can go to all these different sporting games, and also the Nuggets are coming to town, so we can see Jokic. And then Jokic, it was one of the like 5 games he missed that season for the birth of his child.
How dare
so like incredibly valid.
For the birth of a horse.
Yeah, he's for sure missing a game if he has a new horse. So
speaking of which, I don't think I've mentioned this. I'm going to be in Las Vegas this coming Saturday as we record this, so it's Saturday the 13th. The NBA Cup is in Vegas this Saturday. So the 2 semifinal games are in Vegas, presumably like during the day. I might try to go.
Are the semifinal games in Vegas, or is it just the finals that's in Vegas?
No, they're in Vegas. They're at the T-Mobile Arena where the Aces play.
Wow. Are the Knicks in there? Because I feel like we've been doing well cup-wise.
I have not really been keeping track because the Bulls predictably lost.
Fell out of the cup.
Yeah, fell out of everything. Fell out of my good graces, frankly.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
But anyway, it's not set yet because I think the games are taking place this week, and that will determine like who's in those games. But all to say, especially with the time difference, you have to figure for TV, there's probably going to be like a 1 o'clock start time or something.
Well, so here's what it says. Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. We're recording this on December 8th. The quarterfinals are on December 9th and December 10th. So the Knicks are still in it. We have to defeat the Raptors. The Heat and the Magic are playing. The Suns and the Thunder are playing. And the Spurs and the Lakers are playing. The semifinals are on the 13th of December at 5:30 Eastern and 9 Eastern.
Right. So that means a 2:30 Eastern game. Yeah. I could go to that game.
Look, love that. This was something I enjoyed even before having a kid, but now having a kid, stuff that's in the afternoon. Oh my goodness. Dude. Like matinee weekend stuff. This was great even because I'll often come, I'll be on tour doing live shows and stuff. And I'm sure you have this situation as well. there will be some tours where it's like I'm not doing multiple nights in the same city. Like I will just be going here and then moving in here and then moving. So I can't go to like a Bucks game if I'm doing a Midwest tour because I'm only in Milwaukee for the one night. But I was doing a tour through Texas and the Spurs just had a Sunday 1 p.m. game. And it was like great. I got to see Wemby his rookie year. It was super cool. And then we went straight from the arena to dinner and then from dinner to the venue. And then I did a live show. What a Sunday.
Perfect day.
Like give us more afternoon, matinee, weekend games. Like it's so fun. So fun. But yes, all in all, stinks about the Clippers thing. I don't know if Chris Paul will end up on another team. Like, I just don't know what other team is like in the right crossover, pun not intended, but glad used. I just don't know what team is in the crossover where they will like use a roster spot on him / Chris Paul would deem worthy enough to go to. I'm sure a factor of him being on the Clippers is I think his family might still be situated on the West Coast. So like, is there a West Coast team that would want him? The Kings? Like, I don't know.
They're a mess too. Yeah.
They're an absolute mess. So I'm not sure. It's sad. Like Chris Paul's had such a weird, tragic career. Some things his fault, some things not his fault. And it would just be really nice for it to end on a nice button. I hope this is not the end of his career, but I just don't know what else it could be. I don't know what else happens here.
Yeah, it's too bad. But I guess that's the Chris Paul news. And then the other big piece of news was that Giannis apparently wants out.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. It's tricky, but it seems like it.
Yeah. Well, there was a report that he actually was interested in going to the Bulls, and the Bulls were like, nah, we're not interested, which I don't understand why you would feel that way.
So here's the thing, because I initially saw that report, which people have said they don't know, because apparently the guy who said it is not like plugged in with NBA people. He's like a radio announcer, and a lot of like Bulls fans or something in the comments are like, there's no reason this guy would know stuff. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, he could just be speculating.
But even if it's true, I kind of get it after reading more about it, because in order for the Bulls to get Giannis, like, it's not like they have this treasure trove of assets. Like, would the Bulls be any better than the Bucks right now if they removed all of the things in order to get Giannis? Because like, you're probably trading Buzelis, like who's your best player. Like, you're probably giving up anything good. So
right. Yeah, it's not a matter of like, hey, would you sign Giannis if you were a free agent? You're saying if you're trading for him, you're going to have to give up so much and so many draft picks. Like, why would you do that?
And I think that's where the Knicks are at too, because the other report that has been coming out now, whether or not he wants out, like the Giannis is upset vibes are certainly true, because there was more reporting coming out that apparently this offseason he really was interested in joining the Knicks and was making it known like, hey, if I was to be traded, this is a place I'd like to go. But similarly with the Knicks, like, we would probably have to give up either OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges or Mikal Bridges in addition to Karl Anthony Towns to do it. And at that point, it's like, I think it like you probably still do it, but it's not like the slam dunk, oh yeah, kind of thing.
And why mess with the vibes if the vibes are good?
Right. And I think where the Knicks are at, I think the Knicks probably saw it that offseason and were like, let's see how this season goes. We've brought in a new coach. We like our roster. If it's not going well, now let's trade for Giannis. The Knicks are doing pretty well. Like, they're in the top of the East. They are 16-7. They're 13-1 at home. Like, they're doing well. So I think you don't necessarily need to shake it up to that degree. So I think what's interesting is that it seems like Giannis has had things where he has teams he would like to go to, but those teams are like, it's just not the perfect fit. So I don't know. It's very interesting.
We shall see.
Very interesting.
Is there any other news stuff that I've forgotten about?
Nothing huge. There was a report that the Heat have had internal discussions about maybe trading for Ja Morant, which is just the Heat as a we can fix him is so funny. So yeah, I don't think there's anything.
Just because he's often packing Heat doesn't mean the Heat need to sign him.
So yeah, nothing else like too much in the drama thing. It really is like Chris Paul and Giannis as the big things, and we don't talk about the wins and losses. That's not our. Oh, sorry. One funny thing: did you see Desmond Bane chuck a basketball at OG Anunoby?
Yeah, what the hell was that about?
It's the second time he's done it this season. So in basketball, this is a thing that like strategically you can do, where if like there's a loose ball situation and your opponent is out of bounds, if you throw the ball against them and it makes contact with them out of bounds, it's out of bounds on them, and then you get the ball. So like sometimes this can be quite helpful, or you'll see people get in a pickle and like throw it off a guy's shoe if you're like trapped in the corner. So Bane does this on a play where he didn't need to. It was a situation where OG Anunoby was going for a fast break dunk. Anthony Black on the Magic made a fantastic play to basically strip the ball from him before he went up for the dunk. OG falls out of bounds. The ball bounces down. Bane grabs it, probably could have just dribbled the other side of the court, but instead he hurls it like really hard, like he's playing dodgeball right at OG's side, like his back, his side area, just hurls it at him. And it's one of those things, and Clyde, the Knicks broadcaster on the broadcast, said, that looks malicious. It is legal. Like, like he didn't break any rules.
Malicious and vicious from Bane.
Yeah, he said that does look quite hostile, but it's not illegal. So they reviewed it. They did give him a tech because it was unnecessary. But it was such a fun reaction from OG because he gets up and basically gives a very delicate shove of Bane and then asks, why would you do that?
You can like read his lips saying that, yeah.
Yeah, very clear. And yeah, he could have just taken the ball and just like lightly tossed it off of him. Like there's literally nothing OG could do except for like swim move out of the way. Yeah. I don't think it's possible. You could just like toss it at his knee or something. He did not need to do it.
Well, and you make the point, like usually people do it off someone's foot. That's like the humane and reasonable way to do it. Like if someone's out of bounds, you don't throw it at their nose.
No,
which he
no,
didn't.
no.
I mean, Bane didn't do that, but still, it was.
But still, he hurled
speed
it
at which
so
he threw
hard.
It. Yes,
so hard, so unnecessary, super duper weird. So yeah, Bane, this guy, he like Desmond Bane has these crash outs sometimes where he just like gets really heated, and I guess that's his way of taking frustration out, is chucking basketballs at people. He's done it twice this season, so I don't know. Power to you.
Yeah, do you? I guess I don't know.
Do you? Weird. The only other thing that we just will note, we don't talk about the wins and losses, but the Oklahoma City Thunder are 23-1.
Okay, so this is a good place to end Full Court Press. I pose this question to you and our friend Chris. At what point do we start saying like they could actually break the all-time record for wins in the regular season? So for many years it was the 72-10 Bulls. Then the Warriors broke that record the year that they lost to LeBron in Game 7 of the Finals. They were 73-9. So right now we're about a third of the way through the season, a little less than a third of the way through the season. The Thunder are on pace to go, I guess it would be like 78-4.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
If you do the math, right? They're 24-1, you said?
Yeah, you know what? We've talked about math. Let's do it. They're 23-1. So they are.
So 23 divided by 24 times 82.
Well, yeah, exactly. So 23 over 24. And then that's a 96% winning percentage.
Outrageous.
It's absurd.
Who's the only team that beat them this year?
I think the Magic.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was like the Pelicans?
I'll look it up. That would be 78.583 repeating. This is why we should be on that base 12 system. So yeah, looking at, if you round up, 79 wins. If you round down, 78 wins. To go 78-4, quote unquote, conservatively, is wild. Absolutely wild.
Outrageous.
And it's one of those things where you can say like, oh, will they sustain this? Jalen Williams, their second best player probably, did not play the first 15, 16 games of the year. So, you could factor in like, oh, they might get tired and stuff on one end. But on the other end, they won all of these games without their second best player.
Well, I guess I'll pose the question to you. Do you think they can do it?
I think they absolutely could. And I think the reason that they could is that this year, it's kind of an outlier as opposed to other years where there are a lot of just stinker teams, just some real stinker teams out there, just with horrible records. And I think that is what you need for this to happen. We've had seasons recently with like a lot of parity, and there's a lot of fighting at the top of the conference and at the bottom to get into the playoffs. But you've got the 3-19 Wizards, the 5-18 Pacers, the 6-17 Nets, the 7-17 Hornets, and then in the Western Conference, the 3-21 Pelicans, the 6-18 Clippers, the 6-17 Kings, the 8-15 Jazz, who want to keep their top 8 pick. Like, there are so many poopy teams this year. Just so many really.
2 of the Pacers' 5 wins are against the Bulls.
Oh no.
Who have also lost to the Pelicans and the Nets and the Hornets recently.
I'm trying to figure out who the Thunder lost to. They lost to the Mavericks in the preseason, which is pretty funny.
Okay.
But then once you get into the real season, their only loss was to I'm scrolling. They started off really hot. Who did they lose to? I don't even see it. Hold on. I know they lost. Hold on. They lost to the Trailblazers by 2 points.
Wow.
So, yeah. I mean, Trailblazers have been fun.
Aren't you glad we went to see them last year, randomly?
You
remember when you and I went to see the Thunder?
Thunder. When did we see the Thunder?
We went to like a Thunder Nets
the
game.
Thunder Nets game. Yeah. Wow. We did. Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm glad we did.
Just block out every visit to Barclays Center.
It's just, I was so hellbent on, like, I would have remembered seeing them in the Knicks. I forgot that went to that Nets game. Yeah.
No, I mean, a Thunder Knicks game would be like $500 to get in the door.
It'd be very expensive, especially good Thunder, good Knicks. My goodness. Yeah. But yeah, we'll see if they make history. I think they could do it. I think they could do it too, based on how good their team is and how bad some of these other teams are, and how, if it's competitive for being bad, you're going to have teams fighting to try and get into the better lottery situation. So come March and April, we could get some really disgusting basketball. We could get some really big who he play for situations going on. Just NBA 2K creative players on the court left and right. It's going to be the Wild West or the Wild East for who can be as bad as possible. But yeah, I think that concludes Full Court Press. We can get into our interview, which closes out the episode.
Yeah, we, to give you some context, we get a good number of emails from people saying like, hey, we think this person would be a good guest on Horse. And sometimes it's a great recommendation. Sometimes we're like, why would someone think that this would be a person that we would want to have on a basketball podcast? In this case, it was somewhat in between. So we got an email about someone who works in the AI space within basketball, and Mike and I were obviously pretty skeptical about this. Our first email back was like, hey, we're open to talking to this guy, but like, let it be known that we're going to not ask layup questions.
We're going to grill him.
Yeah, we're going to grill him about how ethical his use of AI is. And we did as much, I think, in a reasonable way, but it turned out to be a very interesting conversation. He's clearly a very intelligent and an accomplished fella, and I think you folks will find it insightful. So here it is. All right. As promised, we have a very special guest joining the podcast today. We have founder and CEO of 4 Enterprise, an AI solutions architecture firm working directly with a variety of sports franchises, including multiple basketball teams. Tyler Hockman joins the podcast. Tyler, how you doing?
Good. Adam, Mike, thank you guys for having me on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for being on, and thank you for being chill to our initial email reply, which was like, hey, we're incredibly skeptical of AI, and Mike hates it. Are you sure you want to be on the pod?
Well, I don't know we said that.
I said it internally.
Yes, yeah.
We worded it a little nicer in the email.
Well, I think, and one thing that we're going to, not to come in too hot, but one thing that we're going to try to break down is like, Mike and I have a very unique perspective about AI as it pertains to the work that we do, which is obviously like different from the work that you do. So I think for us, a lot of it pertains to, the ethical use of AI. And I think that's something that like collectively society is trying to figure out and arguably not doing a great job of it right now. But before we get into all of that, Tyler, talk to us a little bit about like, what is your background before even getting into this line of work? Like, are you a basketball fan? Did you grow up playing basketball? Did you grow up watching basketball? Like, where does your history with basketball begin?
Yeah. So a huge basketball fan. I started as a Lakers fan, but I've got some family from Detroit. So I was always a Lakers and Pistons fan. And over the last decade, I would say I've been considerably larger Pistons fan with my Detroit family. So
that's aging well.
Yeah. It is a nice season. I got to say, after 2 years ago, if you look at the statistics of the different, of the turnaround, it's uncanny in all of sports. So it's a good time to be a Pistons fan. I have never played, like serious basketball. I mean, I played in our intramural teams in college. I went to Stanford. I studied a whole bunch of different kinds of engineering. More interested on the like biotechnical side of how sports works. As a small white man, I was never necessarily destined for basketball, but always enjoyed it.
Nice. Well, I'm curious now. So back in, I don't know how old you are, but the infamous Lakers Pistons final, the big upset where the upstart Pistons team beat the Lakers super team. Who would you have rooted for in that matchup? It was like 2004, I think.
Yeah, I'll take Pistons all day. I mean, I just because I live in LA, I support like home teams, but I'm definitely, my allegiance lies with the Pistons.
Very cool.
Nice. Well, look, and even this season, the Lakers have been a really fun. I wouldn't say surprise because you have Luka and LeBron on the team, but I think they are still exceeding expectations. So
I mean, Austin
who knows,
Reeves
man?
he's putting up a season, and I just think all the memes are hilarious with like Luka and Austin Reeves, and then you have Legoat, and Legoat just does whatever he wants this season. It's incredible.
It's a great situation for him just to basically be like, I'm just having a fun time. Look at these kids. You go. Exactly. Look how rambunctious you are. I have sciatica and arthritis. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how long LeBron has left, but it's good for basketball that he's on a good team. It would be a waste to see him almost like when Jordan came back on the Wizards, or what we're seeing with Chris Paul on the Clippers, just
I
like
was just about to say
a sour
Chris
situation.
Paul, formerly on the Clippers.
Yeah, exactly. Until recently on the Clippers.
He joined the Lakers, didn't he? I think he re-signed with the Lakers, no?
Oh, wait. Like
you might
just
be breaking
now?
some news.
Breaking news?
I may be wrong. This may be rumor mill.
Let's see.
Let's find out. This could be fun.
But I thought he was.
I'm not seeing anything right now, so maybe.
Okay, maybe it was a rumor.
That would be very funny.
Yeah, we're gonna have to check in with Shams Twitter and see what's cooking over there. We have a running bit, Tyler, that as the minute we stop recording, some sort of breaking news happens every single time.
Yeah. So he will sign with the Lakers once we hang up
exactly,
this call.
Yeah.
But as I'm looking right now, it is not currently there. That would be very spicy. That would be very fun.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that gives us a little context about your love of basketball, your history with basketball. So I guess going from that to then the work that you're doing now, what is your journey career-wise? So you go to Stanford, which, I've heard of it. Pretty good school. And obviously working on some pretty high-level stuff. What do you do like out of college, and how does that get you from there to here?
Yeah, so during college, I started a couple of different companies. Unfortunately, some of those companies went very well, but my parents did not want me to drop out. And in order to take venture capital funding, there was a consensus in the founding team that they wanted to drop out. So I left those companies, then started a company in the nightlife space. That was an interesting one. I started one in the police. We identified during, all the tension between communities and the police, traffic stops being a big point of contention. And so we facilitated video chats at traffic stops instead of officers or deputies approaching the vehicle.
Was that from like a safety perspective or a COVID perspective, or all of it?
Yeah, it was mostly a safety perspective. Well, it's a safety perspective and also a genuine you had BLM movement, you had, the George Floyd riots, you had a variety of different things that were just creating this tension between, officers and deputies and communities. And that tension would culminate at a traffic stop for better, generally always for worse when it culminated. And so that was both from a safety from the driver perspective and from the officer deputy perspective, and then just trying to ease that tension. Really cool company called SafeStop. Still exists. We ran into some problems. It actually went so viral so fast that the way we rolled it out is we were partnering with police stations. We partnered with the West Hollywood Police Station in Los Angeles. But the problem is you have to go police station by police station or, sheriff department by sheriff department. And so we didn't have enough partners, and we were getting, people downloading the app from everywhere in the country. And then they would get pulled over a traffic stop and get very upset when they weren't able to video chat their officer, and they would ask what's happening. So that we need to figure out the rollout strategy there, but did that at a company. And then about 4 years ago, I started interestingly enough, we started looking at like workplace turnover. That was our initial entry to the market, and using AI to predict when people were going to stay or leave businesses, and then how to actually target interventions to keep them, to make their workplace better and for them to enjoy their work so they would stay longer at businesses. And then through a twist and turns, found our way building the architecture necessary to enable AI tools for a host of different types of businesses, one of them primarily being sports.
The police, I mean, it's not really the focus of what we're talking about, but the police of it all that you're talking about, I'm curious about that. Like, was that something where the intention was for that to be used like unilaterally across all traffic stops? Like that wasn't the sort of thing that was like we're going to pick and choose when we think that there's like danger to one party or the other. Like what would be the best case scenario of like how that would be used?
Yeah, so the idea was was there's a window of time where at a traffic stop, there's a lot of tension, right? It's when the officer is approaching the vehicle. The officer doesn't know, or the deputy doesn't know who's inside the vehicle, if they're armed, if they're not armed, if they're dangerous. And at the same time, the person who is being approached, the driver, is also super tense. They're like, do I reach for the registration? If I reach, am I going to get shot? Do I put my hands on the wheel? Like, they have no idea what's going on too. And so our idea was that at the very least, if we could initiate the communication over video chat. So the deputy or officer is still in their car and you're still in your car, and you get to say, hello, my name is so-and-so. I pulled you over for X, Y, and Z reason. Even if you still approach, in one version, there was you may never need to approach the car if you're going to give a warning or something. But if you need to give a ticket, you still have to approach the car. But now you've already initiated communication. You can tell them what they need to do right now. Put your hands at 10 and 2. I'm going to approach right now. Don't reach for anything. That kind of stuff, and really de-escalate the situation.
Right. It's a way to get out in front of an escalating situation without using a megaphone or a bullhorn to scream something at someone, which we've also seen.
We actually looked at that. We were like, what if we just strapped, police cruisers with blowhorns, and it's like it's too hard.
It's funny. I as someone who, when I went to college, drank a lot and started zero companies, I have had ideas at various times of like, hey, this would be a fun invention. Not that I would know how to implement any of it, but I remember one time I was like, what if there was like a thing, like a news ticker, and you would have it on your bumper, and then if you like cut someone off accidentally, you could say like, oh, hey, sorry about that. Which not only is that a terrible idea, but also would immediately be used for people to send messages like, hey, fuck you. So yes. I immediately was like, no, that's an awful idea, and I should not create companies. But so it sounds like your work with AI started pretty early. And I think at that time, and certainly now to some degree too, it still kind of feels like the Wild West. Like leading up to the work you're doing now, what steps have you taken to ensure that your work, like with AI, is being done ethically and not just like using a bunch of work that other people have spent their whole lives doing and then being like, oh, it's ours now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do think, there isn't a very large element to AI that is still the Wild West. I mean, it's a frontier technology. And with most frontier technologies, like regulation takes time to catch up. Mm-hmm. So you are trusting the good of businesses to be able to, operate ethically. I mean, I'll give you, a classic one. And again, I'm in the AI space, but I still stay very skeptical of it as well. So I thought, you guys' opening email was very healthy because I myself am very skeptical too. OpenAI started as a nonprofit, right? It's a classic example. Like most people don't know this. It started as a nonprofit, and that's how I was able to get the training data it needed without the cost, because you were, donating to a charity functionally. And then now there's been all talks about shifting to a for-profit and IPOing the company and all that kind of stuff. And it is very ethically ambiguous, at the very least, ethically ambiguous.
In the most generous sense.
I'm ethnically ambiguous. AI is ethically ambiguous.
Ethically ambiguous. But yeah, so it's at the very, at the worst, it's worse. So I'm very skeptical of that myself, and I think a lot of my peers in the community aren't pleased with that by any means. But I think it all, when I look at AI from an ethical perspective, and we've worked with probably the most tangible way we've dealt with this is actually both in sports and also with, in Hollywood, because in Hollywood you have the direct, replication of someone's image or someone's voice, their name, their likeliness. And so, and then the ability for a model to produce those things functionally, without ever compensating or giving credit to the initial actor or voice actor, mm-hmm. or so on and so forth. And so it really comes down to the training data, right? How is the training data acquired? Right. Are people being fairly compensated for it? Is it truly publicly, free public information? Are you scraping from private websites? And, we have a very detailed process towards understanding training data. And then subsequently, what type of models are you using? All of those models being inherently developed non-ethically, where even if you then use ethically sourced training data, you've now built it on top of a model that wasn't necessarily developed ethically. And so there's multiple layers to it, but I agree. It's definitely a contentious and very sophisticated topic that I think begins with, how are you training the model?
Yeah. And is your company one that like you're very strict about, all of our information is sourced from places where we know it's legit or people have been compensated? Like that's something that you stick true to make sure that all of the things that you're doing are done in the proper way?
Yeah. I mean, it's something we're extremely diligent about. Now, granted, a large part of our business is building the framework with which the data comes into and then gets outputted out of. So we don't necessarily deal, like the company acquires the data. Most of our clients actually, like an example with sports, like they go and actually acquire the video footage of, of people, of player. Let's say if you're looking at, a scouting perspective and you're trying to build a tool to help scouts, they're actually the ones going and acquiring that data footage, either handheld, at games or, from different vendors. And then we build the infrastructure and the tool to process that data and then analyze it. But we do definitely stay very close towards, how are you actually going and acquiring that data?
Nice.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of trust that you have to have in terms of the people that you're working with or are working with you to be like, all right, you're giving us all of the stuff to work with, but I'm trusting that you're acquiring it in a way that's above board is what I'm understanding from you. Yeah.
And we can normally tell a little bit, like given the structure of the data, like the uniformity and the, data typically acquired in non-ethical means is very scattered and dispersed because it's scraped typically. And so, you can normally tell to some extent, but yeah, there's definitely a component of trust there.
Okay.
So what's the origin of you starting to work with sports franchises? Like, how does that come to be?
Yeah, it's great. We built Four. Four was working with Fortune 500 companies across finance and everything from finance to fashion to to real estate. And doing various things like building this infrastructure to then go and power these tools that do a whole bunch of different things. And then multiple times we were actually approached by different franchises, both mainly across the NBA and the NFL, with certain theses. Like we get a lot of inbounds that say, I've been tasked with adding AI to my business. I don't know how to do it, and I really don't know how to do it ethically as well. And so that is kind of how we get approached typically, and we were approached both by teams in the NBA and the NFL. And then what we do is we spend a very long diligence process where we really understand, because like our big thing is that like we like to deliver ROI. I actually just wrote this piece, and it's in the Forbes Business Council about how AI, 95% of the time people say that they don't actually get any ROI from the AI investment. Like it's expensive and it's really hard to actually show how it's making effective change. And so our big thing is we like to have really well-documented problems with very well-documented KPIs and metrics we're going to track against. And so you can't manage what you can't measure. And so we want to make sure we can measure it, and then we manage it using, cool AI tools and hopefully deliver some value.
I was just going to say, I think another AI concern aside from the sort of, ethical way in which it's sourced, the environmental output is another one that comes up a lot. It's something that I'm concerned with. Is there anything that your company does to try and, I don't know if there's a way to offset it or a way to like have the data centers run in a way that is not destroying towns? Like, how do you address the environmental aspect of it?
Yeah. And to that point too, I don't think our grid can even take the let alone the environmental damage from a ecological standpoint, and a cultural standpoint. There's also the very grid with which these data centers plug into. And like most of these towns are constantly sending emails to like their governor saying, we can't support this data center. Please don't put it here. So I think it's a really good point. What one of the things we actually do is we have created a very cool way to ingest data using sampling techniques that allows you to extrapolate more information with less data. So essentially you sample the data to figure out, the most important pieces of it. And in theory, that allows you to consume a lot less data, which then pulls from a data center significantly less. So I would say that's probably the primary way that we're addressing that. Personally, I'm interested in, there's a company, and the name escapes me right now, that's looking at, they just put a payload into space that can operate as a data center. So I think data centers in space, and all the big guys have said it, Bezos, Musk, Jensen, they've all said that data centers in space are coming because you have 24-hour solar, you can use liquid cooling. There's all the different types of reasons, but I actually do believe that that'll be a big offset as well.
Okay. Interesting.
So what, and I don't know how much you're able to disclose of like who you work with, but take, and since this is a basketball podcast, allegedly, what is an example of like a basketball context in which your company has been, asked to deliver whatever the, result may be?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done it in a variety of different ways. The first way, and I can kind of just walk through it. The first way we looked at it is actually from the practice perspective. And there was two kind of two kind of indicators around that. And we looked at a practice facility really, and what takes place within a practice facility and how much of that can you add AI to. The first one was in the combine process, which is really fascinating because you have all these different, you've got obviously your blue chip players, right, coming out of college. You've identified them. They're going to go somewhere in the first or second round. And then you have everyone else, right? That's not, they're doing group workouts. They're working out with, potentially tons of people. And it actually, for most NBA teams, is an efficiency and a load problem. And so they can't give, obviously, the same level of analysis that they're giving to your top pick that they're giving to everyone else. And so the question was, could we use AI to add an analytical element on top of that can provide a similar level of metric coverage and then metric analysis that would be what a top pick would be getting for everyone coming through the combine for an NBA team. And so that was actually a really cool one because it involved video tracking, it involved very careful parameters as to defined workouts and defined exercises and making sure we're capturing all of those. And then ultimately, what actually makes potentially a good prospect. So that was a pretty cool application of it. We swam a little bit downstream from there and we looked at scouting in general. So could you ingest footage from, college, but even younger, right? Even like, some of the under 18, some of the overtime league, all those different leagues. And, and those leagues, there's so many of them and there's so many players. It's actually a great use of AI because I think AI right now is best at synthesizing large volumes of data and producing outputs that just take a long time to produce. It's not like a human couldn't do it, but they could just it would take them so long to synthesize all that data. And so that was a really cool one where we were involved in kind of creating analytics for the scouting process at a significantly younger age than obviously with consent and everything, like you have to be over 18 and all that kind of stuff and they have to consent to it. But so that was another one. Then we've been involved in player development. So actually connecting like biometric information to practice information because right now those sit a little bit disparate. You have players wear, depending on the team, they wear something typically that tracks all their biometric information, but there's no really good way to actually perfectly sync that with like what movements are they doing, what shots are they doing, what workouts are they doing within the practice facility, ironically. And so we kind of help them sync the two. And so you can almost see how their body is performing very in real time against what exercises they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, these all sound like the ways that AI should be used. Like, I feel like I will often have conversations and I'm usually saying like, it's terrible, get rid of everything. And then some people are like, well, here's the way it's actually useful. Like Adam and I are both on a softball team where most of the team is lawyers. And they said that they will use AI just to like, kind of like you're describing, a thing where like a human could do it, but it would take so long. Like they'll use it to say, give me every single court case that's about this. And then they'll just have it give them links to the actual court cases. Then they read them themselves and use their brains to like actually write the things out. They're not telling ChatGPT like, what should I say to the judge? But yeah, I think like for the usage of taking just so much data that is out there and trying to speed up the process, because if a human did it would just take so much time. I think that makes sense. Like, I think that makes sense for the video thing. I think that's actually pretty cool if you're trying to make sure at whether that is like a lower draft prospect or someone who plays overseas that you're not letting Giannis Antetokounmpo fall to 15th in the draft again if you're, analyzing that. So I think that is, when people are always trying to make the case of there are like ways it could be used that are good, like this is what it feels like it ought to be. The things that it's, not trying to produce something else. You're not trying to completely replace the human element. It's just literally like there's only so much time and so much manpower that we can have. If we had something that made this simpler, cool. And then on top of that, to use that to potentially, with the biometric stuff, like you're saying, if it's used to like prevent injuries and stuff, that's extra cool. Like keeping people healthy, especially given that the way basketball has gone now, people are getting more and more injured just because of how intense the game is, how fast paced it is, the fact that kids are playing 12 AAU games a day. I think if you're also keeping people healthy on top of it, like this feels like where things ought to be.
I appreciate that.
It's interesting to think about that from an injury perspective, in the sense of like, we saw how many Achilles tears last year in the playoffs, right? So if one could analyze the way Jason Tatum was moving leading up to his Achilles tear, and then be like, hey, it looks like Tyrese Halliburton is trending in a direction that's really dangerous. Like, we need to be aware of that. And the guy probably would have played anyway, but I think you make a great point, Mike. And Mike and I play on that same softball team. I think they've also talked about the idea that purposefully, there is so much legalese and so much nonsense in these gigantic documents that they get that, AI not necessarily being a replacement, but an assistant to be like, give me a 1-page description of like what this 100 pages is talking about. And that doesn't mean you just rely on it blindly. But something I hadn't even thought about is like anytime you sign up for anything, there's a 30-page terms and conditions that none of us actually read. I think AI used in that context too would be valuable to be like, hey, what am I signing up for here exactly?
That's actually the one. So my wife Kelly is also pretty, skeptical of it. But the 2 usages she always cites as like her good ones are, there's an AI tool that she used that basically takes maternity leave, because when we were going on maternity leave, there's like all these certain stipulations and it's different by state and city and all this kind of stuff and how you get paid and blah blah blah. There's just an online tool that's like, hey, here's where I live, here's where I work, what is my maternity thing, like what's my maternity leave process. And then similarly, when we're signing up for health insurance, because that's super fun in America, there's another one that's like, can you just turn this into bullet point English? And those are the kind of things, just like you're saying, Adam, it's like, yeah, I support like doing something to make sure we're not getting screwed over or leaving money on the table or whatever. So
Tyler, obviously this conversation began with us talking about our skepticism around AI. You've talked about your own. When you're working with these sports franchises, how much resistance do you get from people? I don't know how like hands-on you are personally, but like I think in sports there's always this kind of debate about like old guard versus new guard. So you've got some like young 32-year-old coach who's all about using this stuff, but then you might have someone like a Greg Popovich who's like, I don't want this shit. So like, where do you see the receptiveness being within sports? Are people getting on board? Or some people like, I don't really want to deal with it?
Yeah, it's definitely a mix. And I don't think that's gone away. I think, even analytics themselves, right? Let's take a step back from AI and just say, sports analytics still face, a lot of obstacles. So, I think analytics are definitely the first step, right? Because to our collective point, like where I think AI is most effective in sports right now is in an accessibility feature. Ultimately, it's like making the data more accessible to players and coaches and staff. Another cool one we worked on is like the ability for a coach to actually, in plain English, ask questions of the data, right? Like that's something that's never really existed for, because normally they have to talk to their guy that's sitting 2 behind them, and they've got to be like, hey, run the model, and they run the model, and then they look at, the shooting statistics, and then they're trying to actually produce mathematical, formulae in English that the coach can understand. He's like, all right, go find, go away.
I mean, that happens. Like there's the famous like NBA gambler turned analytics guy, Bob Voulgaris, who had all of these models and stuff and then worked for the Mavericks, and then I think got fired because Mark Cuban was annoyed by him. Yes. Like it's, of all the reporting I've heard, it just seems like there was literally just a communication breakdown of like, I know from my data that you should be doing different things, and Mark Cuban was like, grumble, get out of here.
Exactly.
So like, yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, and so I think as an accessibility tool, it's very helpful, but you still face resistance. I mean, people. Although I actually do think it is bridging the divide. Like it is enabling, because you can use plain English, it's allowing people who, are very apprehensive against it because they just can't understand, how the algorithms work and so on, which is very fair. It's tough to use something that, you really just cannot understand how it works. And now if you can ask it questions and, in normal speech, it really does enable people to feel more comfortable with it.
Yeah. I think another thing with the work that you're describing is that as I've been having more conversations about it too, it feels like the term AI, it's like this big bubble term. And sometimes the things that are more on the, I don't know, like the more harmful scales seem to be like the LLMs, like I don't know if it's the whatever language, what's the L in LLM? Something
large.
Language model? Large. Okay. So the large language models, those are the things that like, environmentally pretty bad. Those are the ones usually that I've found like are stealing work off of stuff. They're trying to get people to keep using them. Like they're intentionally designed so that you keep using it. Whereas like AI doesn't have to mean just that. So is that something that as someone who works in AI, are you frustrated with the fact that the term might be getting misused, that the stuff that you're doing is different from what like conventionally is thought of as AI, aka at this point just like ChatGPT? How does that all factor in for someone who's like actually working in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, now you're getting, if this was a different, probably 90% more nerdy, you're getting into a very nerdy conversation.
You've got a really nerdy audience. Our audience is nerds turned basketball fans. Okay, so you are in the right spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is my, like, I've got, 40 engineers sitting in a room and this is what we're talking about. It's like people misusing the word AI. But it does. It gets misused all the time. I think it is a catch-all right now. And, what is the difference between an algorithmic analysis, AI, an LLM, which is definitely a part of AI, generative engineering, prompt engineering. There's all different aspects to it. I mean, in its core, what AI is, right, is the ability to look at a problem that it has not seen before, but be trained on data that it understands, and then be able to replicate that thought process to a problem it hasn't seen before. Like that to me is the difference between AI and an algorithm. Like an algorithm, you give it the input data, it outputs something, it's correlated, tied solely to that input data. AI can look at a problem it's never seen before. And yes, to your point as well, we use AI mostly, and I think, and it is getting there. Like there's two different facets of it. It's descriptive AI versus prescriptive AI. And so descriptive AI is kind of what we're talking about, right? It's taking large data sets and describing them in a way that someone can access them in a very easy fashion, whether or not it be a coach, a player, staff, and so on. And then prescriptive AI is actually telling you what to do, right? It's producing the plays for you. It's, I don't believe AI is there right now. And that's not to say, and I do believe that's where most of the ethical questions do arise, because in order to get it there, you have to train it on such a volume of data, and have you acquire that data in, an ethical way? What are the implications on having to train so much data from an energy standpoint? That is where it does arise. And yeah, we don't really focus on the prescriptive stuff. We do mostly descriptive stuff.
Okay. So you bring something interesting up in terms of like where we're at now and where we could be. When you look at specifically sports, or we can keep it to basketball, what are we not seeing right now that when you look ahead 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now, you could see AI being involved with the sport? I know that's a broad question, but like, what are maybe a couple bullet points of like, hey, it's not there yet, but in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're coming up on, workout routines because it's so tied to the biomedical stuff being prescribed by AI. Where they can, and doctors are, and again, every field faces apprehension, right? Like some doctors get behind this. Most doctors would say, no, that's not going to happen. There's a human component to it. But yeah, so, any workout routines, player optimization, right? Like I wouldn't even say, it gets very complicated of like, how do you actually make a player better? Like telling them what to do specifically and how to change their jump shot and all that stuff. But what is more on the horizon is what is the optimal lineup that a coach should be using, because optimal lineups actually correlate with a ton of data, right? Because every player generates all these different data metrics, and you've got to map those against other players' data metrics. And so as an optimization problem for lineups, it's actually very interesting. I don't know if we're there yet, but it is interesting to see, which 5-man rotation works best. Are you offensive, defensive, big, small, somewhere in the middle? Are you only 3-point shooting? Are you, there's a whole bunch of so many things to consider.
Right.
Yeah. So that one I think is interesting. Pretty much anything that has a prescriptive nature, in the future could be augmented by AI. But I think the ones that are most applicable are ones that have a large amount of data and a large amount of variables in place.
Yeah, I think that's what makes analytics in basketball tricky, because you can compare it to a sport that we reference on the podcast a lot, even though it's a basketball podcast, baseball. Baseball, it's kind of like it's an individual sport pretending to be a team sport. And there's clear things of like, this guy threw the pitch, this guy swung the bat, this fielder caught the ball. Like it's all individual, much more trackable things. Whereas basketball, it's like, well, he got the open three, but was he open because he was fast, or was he open because the center in the middle was more of a threat and the defender sagged off? Like there's so many variables that I can see why working in a field where you're trying to just analyze so much data, it would make more sense in basketball, because it's sometimes impossible. People talk about like, how do you quantify the gravity of Steph Curry? The fact that he can shoot from 40 feet away. Like, how do you quantify, oh yeah, Draymond Green gets a bunch of wide open shots because Steph Curry's on his team? Like, it's just hard to kind of analyze like the exact nature of that. So I think that's interesting.
That's actually the classic one, right? Is like, why do players, once they leave the Warriors, their 3-point percentage drops so much? Well, it's because they're wide open, because like everyone's triple teaming Steph, and so that they're shooting wide open threes the whole time.
Yeah, that's even happening this year with the Celtics. It's like everyone is down. It's like, well, because the best player is not guarding Jason Tatum anymore, they're guarding Jaylen Brown, and then the second best player is now guarding Derek White. So like everyone just has a one level up harder defender to deal with.
I feel like all of this stuff would make Red Auerbach's head explode. Just thinking about like kind of the old guard of sports and how confusing it would be. But I think, Tyler, you touched on something very important, which is that it seems to me that the best use of AI is like helping humans deliver messages more efficiently, like giving the information to actual human beings who can then, like, I don't think LeBron or anyone else is going to want an AI assistant telling it how to work out. But if that information can help his coach or his trainer or his whoever give him that information, then great. Like, I think when you talk about the medical field, right? Like, I don't want Siri telling me that I have cancer. But if AI can identify that I have cancer, I'm happy to receive that information from a person. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's why like Microsoft called it a co-pilot right now. Like they don't call it the pilot, they call it the co-pilot. It's because it's doing it in tandem with the human.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we're right at about time here, but I would love to end it on, we talked a lot about like the future, the speculative stuff, but is there something that you have done in the basketball space with your company that's like a cool thing to share of like, we had this particular problem, we solved it, or like we analyzed all this data and we found this? Like, is there one kind of like cool, look at this thing we did to share?
I'm trying to think of like the cool, like, the coolest one. I mean, I'll take one nerdy one and then one like more well, the coolest one is how do you actually take video, like from a technical perspective, how do you take video data that's very disparate and be able to synthesize the timestamps so you can actually match it up with like biometric information? I mean, from a thought process perspective, it's like actually pretty difficult, right? Because you have to use all these different markers to track like the, increase in heart rate relative to this exact instance in a video. And like it required us to create our own training data for a while. Like we had to be looking at people and just sitting there and be like, oh, I see him like jump a little bit. Like I bet you that correlated with a spike in the heart rate. And then we mark it, and then so that was actually like it was a heavy undertaking, but a very cool one. And then I would say the scouting one, like being able to just look at, I think it gives democratization and accessibility to like foreign leagues. To your point, actually using the Giannis example, and so I can't say specifically to any player or any team, but the ability to look at foreign players where they were not getting the love and attention that obviously domestic players get and really kind of bring that more to the forefront of the NBA was a very cool project.
Cool.
That's super cool. Awesome.
Nice.
Well, before we let you go, anything you would like to plug?
I mean,
I don't think our listeners can afford your services, but
and if they could, they should be supporting us harder on Patreon.
No, I just appreciate you guys having me on. I love talking about this stuff, so this was more fun for me than anything. So really, really thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you for being down, especially given that our reply was so skeptical off the jump. We appreciate you. Like when we were crafting the reply, I was like, "There's a good chance we just don't hear back from this guy," and I appreciate the fact that you're down to have a conversation with two AI skeptics. Very upfront about it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Four Sources, hosted by Adam Amawala and Mike Schubert. This episode was edited by Kensei Suramaki. The music is by Bettina Kambamanas. The art is by Alison Wickman. The website is by Kelly Schubert. And the social media is by both of the Horse Boys.
Thank you to our producer-level patrons, Polly Burridge, Salvatore Testa, Siobhan Ellsbury, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Roast Beef Debris, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Reed. Steph Curry didn't even play last night. The Warriors still beat the Bulls by 30.
Seth.
God. Chase Underrulo, Naked Rachel, Sidney Crosby is a vampire, Chelsea's cousin, Ginger Spurs Boy Balls to the Walls, Mats Furli, Utah Jash, and Derry Bird. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horse Hoops and on Twitter at Horse_Hoops because...
Horse Hoops was actually run by Chris Paul, and the Clippers were like, get this account out of here.
And
we're severing ties.
In the middle of the night, too.
Yeah, just woke up to it. My account's been deleted.
You can go to our website, horsehoops.com, for links to the things we talked about today, including, why not? Footage of Desmond Bane tossing a ball at OG Anunoby for really no apparent reason. Why did you do that?
No good reason. Why? But if you want to support the Horse Boys, you can do so in a couple of ways. You can go to patreon.com/horsehoops. You can get access to video recordings that we do from these episodes when we live stream them. You can get access to bonus audio, alternate titles for what we were considering titling the episode. Lots of fun stuff over there. And then you can get merch. You can go to horsehoops.com/merch and get Sub Nerds. It's basketball shirts and wallpapers and all sorts of fun stuff. But we're going to conclude this episode, as we always do, by putting our hands in the middle and saying something on the count of three. I want to wish you good luck on your big headlining set, man.
Oh, thank you, man.
That's a super cool thing going down, and I would love to say good luck, Adam. Or what is there a comic way of break a leg? Is there anything that's like traditionally said?
I feel like what you would say to like another comedian is just like crush it or kill it or something like that.
Crush it. All right, let's say crush it on three. I like that. 1, 2, 3.
Crush it.
Crush it, me.
It's gonna be, yeah, crush it, Adam. Crush it, you. Dude, I'm so jealous. I hope it is a delight. Everyone should.
Well, I should be getting footage of this as well. So as I've done in the past, maybe I'll send it over to you and Kelly so she can watch her favorite comedian.
Yes, we will watch from afar, raising the roof as we drink hot cocoa in Christmas pajamas.